Hello and welcome to the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. My name is Kyle Case and I'll be your host on this amazing journey as we attempt to help you get the most out of your life. Today's guest, James Neider, is the Executive Director of Cardiovascular Services for Intermountain Health's Desert Region, leading a team of more than 75 cardiology providers and 300 caregivers. He focuses on advancing cardiovascular care, operational excellence, and team development all across the region. Previously, James directed the Heart Specialty Care and Transplant Center at Ascension Seton Medical Center in Austin, Texas, and managed the comprehensive epilepsy and neurodiagnostic programs at the University of Utah Hospital. He began his career as a registered nurse, specializing in heart failure, heart transplant, and cardiac diagnostics, and holds both a Bachelor of Science in nursing and an MBA from Brigham Young University. An educator and innovator, James has served as adjunct faculty at Ensign College and co-founded the Utah End Institute and the Rocky Mountain Neurodiagnostic Society. Outside of work, he enjoys long-distance running, reading, hiking, camping, and spending time with his wife and 4 children. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kyle. Great to be here.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. It's crazy to think back about all those things and where life has taken me and different adventures. But as you'd mentioned, I had a brief stint with longer than a brief stint, but did neuro at the University of Utah for about 10 years and then have come back to cardiovascular. So awesome to be in this space.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's got to be a lot of satisfaction as you see positive outcomes, but also technology advances, and then to be a part of all of that as it's taking place. It's kind of a cool position to be in.
It is. It's a fascinating time to be in healthcare. A lot of challenges, a lot of headwinds, but very fascinating time.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what your role is. What does the Executive Director of Cardiovascular Services do?
As you stated, a lot of providers, so about 75, 80 cardiologists. We also have a lot of advanced practice providers as well. So that would be nurse practitioners, physician assistants. And then with that, we also have a lot of nursing staff, medical assistants, stress testing techs, there's so much that really goes into that. We have the diagnostic side of what we do as well. And so there's another gentleman that's kind of over that piece that I work with. But we have a very interesting region. So here in Southwest Utah, we're kind of a quasi-rural area,
right?
But then we have a lot of these other outreach rural areas that are smaller. We have Cedar City, that's part of our catchment area. We have Mesquite. We're all the way out in Pahrump. So if you're familiar with Pahrump, that's out west of Las Vegas there. So we have just this really kind of mixed bag of different areas that we provide cardiovascular care for, and it's really fascinating. So for our more rural areas, we're really in an effort to take world-class care to those areas. And we really do. We have world-class providers here in St. George, in the Nevada area, just some of the most impressive providers. And we have certainly the accolades to back that up. So there's a lot of that, but really, like you talked about, those advancements in healthcare, pushing those, bringing in new technology, really, a lot of my efforts are focused on the recruitment of these providers, these physicians, and bringing them into this area. So there's a lot that goes on to that. But my role is mostly over the ambulatory space.
Okay.
We have inpatient leadership that's over more of the inpatient side.
So you're currently not acting as a physician, and your role is more administrative. As you said, you're recruiting, you're working the logistics, you're just making sure that all the systems work.
Yeah.
But you have had medical experience. You started out as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you'll share maybe an experience or a story of, just an exciting time or a great outcome when you were in the care space, I should say.
Yeah. So I just think back to my time as a nurse in the heart transplant and heart failure program up at Intermountain Medical Center. Just an amazing experience. really, that patient population, the heart failure population, is really some of the most sick and most critical patients that you can really care for in medicine.
Very vulnerable time. Like we all need that heart. We all need it.
Yeah,
and when it's not working just right, it really is literally it's life or death.
It really is.
Yeah,
it really is, and it's a very sad thing to see. I mean, those patients have about a 50% mortality rate within about 5 years of their diagnosis, and so we see, unfortunately, a lot of passing away of those patients.
Yeah.
But it's also a miracle to see someone that can get to that stage where they can qualify for a heart transplant. Not everybody does. There's a lot that goes into that. But when they receive that heart transplant, their life completely changes. Their mobility, their ability to really do their daily activities in life is just so minimal with that diagnosis. And after transplant, it can be completely different. I would say there's really nothing quite like it other than like a biblical miracle.
Yeah.
Right? Like those miracles that took place in the Bible, like it's like that. Like their quality of life just entirely changes after that. It's amazing. It really is a miracle.
I do appreciate that word miracle because you're literally giving them a new heart. And to go from, as you said, one of the sickest you can be, the population that is the sickest you can be, to be able to regain that quality of life. This got it, like you said, it's got to be just a miraculous thing to watch, and so satisfying to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
So we talked about how important the heart is. Obviously, we all only have one. It's got to keep working. It's got to keep pumping for us. I'm wondering if you'll share just some kind of interesting facts about the heart that maybe we don't think about when we think about our heart.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the heart pumps about 2,000 gallons of blood a day. If you can imagine stacking 2,000 gallons of milk, it's amazing. 100,000 times a day it will beat.
Wow.
Have you ever done 100,000 reps of anything? Of anything.
Just anything at all. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is. And the efficiency of the heart is just miraculous. But I think the endurance of the heart is what's really amazing. Yeah, 100,000 is a lot, but it doesn't take a break day to day. I think it's about like 2 billion beats in a lifetime, and it never takes a break. If it took a break for maybe more than 2 or 3 seconds, you would notice it, you would feel it, but it never takes a break.
And it's made of a special kind of muscle, right? It's the cardiovascular muscle is exclusive to the heart. I mean, it's in its name, obviously.
It is.
But it's a different muscle than your biceps or your triceps or your glutes or whatever, right?
It is. The myocardium, the muscle of the heart, it's very unique. And again, I'm not a physician. I'm not clinically in practice as a nurse anymore, but it is fascinating. It has that endurance that no other muscle has. I mean, 100,000 reps, we focus on maybe doing 5, 10.
5 or 10, and maybe,
right, like
20 if you really put it.
Right, but it just never stops. It's amazing.
So we've talked again already about how important the heart is. We all know that. That's a given. What are some things we need to know about cardiovascular disease?
Well, I think the prevalence is, we all know. Some of the statistics, I think, are pretty staggering. So there's about 1 million Americans that die from cardiovascular disease each year.
Every year?
Every year.
Wow.
I think one thing that's sad and also a staggering statistic is that, it is the leading killer for women as well. And worldwide, there's about twice as many cardiovascular deaths as there is of all cancers combined.
See, now that's interesting to me. I've heard that stat before, and neither diagnosis is one that you want. You don't want to walk into your doctor and get diagnosed with cardiovascular disease. You definitely don't want to walk in and get diagnosed with cancer either. It feels to me like, though, we hear a little bit more about cancer. And as you said, though, cardiovascular health and the disease in that area, it's the leading cause of death.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting and surprising, even though it shouldn't be. But I just feel like we hear more about cancer for some reason.
Yeah, we need to do a better job. And I think we are trying to do a better job with that and getting the word out, especially with women and cardiovascular disease. We need to do better.
I want to talk a little bit about what you mentioned there, the difference between men and women. I think, again, and this is just a perception, but it feels like when you think of a heart attack, you think of a very stereotypical man
Sure.
grasping his chest
Yes.
and then falling to the floor. That's the way it's portrayed in TV and movies. That's the vision, the visual that we think of. But you're saying that women experience it as well, and maybe a little bit different than men.
Yeah, it is a little bit different. So symptomatically, it can be a little bit different. We think of someone having a heart attack. For a woman, they might have back pain. It's not something that they would think, well, I need to go see a cardiologist or I need to go to the emergency department even.
Yeah.
They might just try to deal with it. But back pain could indicate that they could be having a potential heart attack. Nausea and vomiting or exhaustion, like some of those things could also indicate that. During childbearing years, women have some of the benefits that come with estrogen that actually benefit the inner lining of your blood vessels and also help out with cholesterol levels. After menopause, that can drop off, and we can see increased cardiovascular disease in women after menopause.
So is there anything that we can do, things that we should be aware of, especially let's talk about the women first. That's where we're headed right now. So let's talk about women first, then maybe we'll get to men in just a minute. Or is there a difference on how we care for our heart throughout our lives?
Yeah, I'm not a physician. I don't want to really fully comment on that. But I think our activity, I think it's really the same things that we need to focus on.
Yeah.
We always talk about sleep. We talk about exercise and diet. I think there's also some other things that maybe we don't talk about as much that are really a big impact on our cardiovascular care. There's a famous TED Talk a while back that focused on the Harvard. It was a Harvard study on adult development. A famous TED Talk. It went viral. But in this is a study of Boston men.
Okay.
There were two groups of men. One was a group of men in the Boston area that were undergraduates at Harvard. The other group of men were men that had grown up in the inner city, some of the most disadvantaged areas in Boston. So they tracked the lives of these men, and this started in 1938, and the study continues today.
Oh wow!
A few of those men are still alive.
A very long-term study.
It is a very long-term study, but the things that came out of that study are really fascinating. And I guess the gist of it would be that not some of the things that we typically think about with diet and exercise and sleep and things, but it was human relationships that determine longevity of life, that even loneliness and isolation, really how they negatively impacted the health of those men. They were able to better determine longevity of life based on strong human interrelationships, more so than cholesterol levels. So cholesterol levels at age 50 were a lower predictor of living into your 80s than actually having those strong relationships throughout life.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That is something that here at the Games we're aware of, and we work really hard to try to create opportunities for these social interactions that not only take place during the 2 weeks of the Games, but we hope, and we've seen it happen, that these relationships that you form on a pickleball court or on a basketball court or in the swimming pool or wherever it is, they're real relationships and they last, and people look forward to seeing each other every year. But oftentimes they create these bonds where they see each other outside of the Games, and whether it's a phone call or an email, or they run into each other at other events.
That's awesome.
And we have found again, based on this study and others that we've researched, that I've researched personally, that social connection is so crucial and so vital and so almost contrary to the narrative that we are used to.
It is.
We're told diet, exercise, and I'm not downplaying the importance of any of the common sense approaches. Sleep, you mentioned sleep, all super important. We got to keep doing that. We can't just turn to a diet of Twinkies, but say I've got some really good friends, so I'm going to be fine, right? It doesn't really work that way either. But that social aspect is really fascinating to me, and as an organization, we've really honed in on that. Our mission was from the very beginning to foster worldwide peace, health, and friendship. And this was long before we knew anything about the actual long-term health benefits of these friendships. But we found that is the case, and we work really hard to create those opportunities.
I love that.
And I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's so crucial and it's so important. And it doesn't have to be hard work. It's just connecting with people. It's saying hi to the mailman. It's being nice to the clerk at the checkout counter at Walmart, wherever it is.
It really is.
Those little social interactions go a long way as predictors of longevity. And it's just, like you said, it's fascinating, but also kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. Things that you can do without having to go see your cardiologist.
There you go. There you go. I want to talk a little bit about the new technologies, the future of cardiology. We've talked about the things that we need to do to stay healthy. What are we seeing down the line that's going to help in the long term as far as treatment and other things like that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things. I just think of, we all have Apple Watches and Fitbits, and I think the early detection is stronger than it's ever been. Patients that deal with atrial fibrillation can recognize that they're actually in atrial fibrillation before they even have to go to the hospital or see their doctor, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We have a new device that has come out relatively recently called CardioMens. And this is for our heart failure patient population. So it's a small little device that's implanted in the pulmonary artery, and we can get readings, real-time readings on those pressures. And we can identify very early on if these patients are having an exacerbative episode of heart failure. We can recognize those events sometimes 2 days, few days, or even weeks before patients would actually feel symptomatic with it.
Wow!
So it's amazing. We can make those medication changes based on that info that comes so much earlier than, unfortunately, symptoms do.
And this is particularly, you're talking about this implant device. So this would be somebody who already is aware of a heart problem.
Yes.
They're not just implanting these devices in everybody, right? This is somebody who's come in, had some issues, they get the device, and then allows their doctors to care for them even better.
Exactly.
What about, these are two big buzzwords that we hear a lot about, robotics and AI. Anything that you're aware of that we should keep our eye on there?
Yeah, I know. I read an article recently about AI reading some of our diagnostic studies, reading echocardiography reports and things like that. So I don't know. Some of that is coming. I mean, there's literature on it, and of course we need to make sense with it, with anything with AI. Robotics, we do use robotics here in Southwest Utah, and I think a lot of hospital systems are moving more towards robotics, and some of our younger cardiothoracic surgeons, they're getting that more so in their training and bringing that to areas and spaces where maybe it wasn't there before. So we're seeing a lot of that. It's exciting.
You mentioned at the beginning of the show miracles, and it does feel like we live in a miraculous time. However you define that word, whether there's a spiritual aspect or just the unique aspect of these technologies and advancements and things, but it feels like we live in a miraculous time, and lucky us that we get to take advantage of it, for sure.
Absolutely.
You've lived your life basically in the healthcare industry, your professional life. You've seen a lot of the tough things that happen, as you mentioned, cardiovascular disease and situations. I'm curious if any of these professional experiences that you've had have affected your personal approach to health and wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think working in heart failure and transplant, like I said, the mortality rate is just so high.
Yeah.
And, we would have patients on a weekly or, every other week, we would have patients that are passing away. And a lot of my role was really education and trying to prevent things from getting worse. And it was really alarming to me how many people I would talk to that just weren't willing to change some of their lifestyle habits, knowing that full well they would be back in the hospital with the same episode or issue if they didn't. So my focus always has been cardiovascular, aerobic exercise. And so I was a big runner.
Okay.
my wife got me into running, and I did not want to have anything to do with it. And for me, it's always been like, do something that you enjoy. Otherwise, you're not going to stick with it.
That's common sense advice.
It really is, right? But my wife's like, let's go do the St. George Marathon.
Yeah.
This was in 2004. And I'm like, I told her, I said, I would rather rollerblade 100 miles than run 26.2.
Yeah.
There's other things I would rather do. But anyway, I stuck with it. I did it. And for the next 20 years, I stuck with running.
Wow.
And I just recently, I've kind of gone back to doing some more strength training. I feel like, I'm 45.
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely need more of the anaerobic exercise as well. So I really am trying to balance things right now. But so I think my experience in cardiovascular care really turned me on to being a cardio junkie, really for 20 years.
And I can only imagine that it would have to, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned something about some people being unwilling to make changes or ultimately make that decision to do something different and maybe even sometimes something hard. But it really does just come down to a decision, right? And we all have the ability to make those decisions, even when the choice is hard. So you got into running. You mentioned the St. George Marathon. Talk about maybe a favorite race or a favorite experience that you've had, whether it's the St. George or somewhere else. 20 years of running, that's a lot.
Okay. The last time I did it was 2019. So It's been a bit since I've ran a marathon. About 6 years. I wanted a PR, and I feel like even at 45, I can still get
in there.
PR. I feel like I can. I really do. But this for me was a year I wanted to PR. I was 39, I was turning 39 that year. I thought, okay, I'm approaching 40. Can I really still do it?
Yeah.
So I started out the race. I started it slow. I've obviously over 20 years, I've learned how to pace myself.
Some experience.
So I started out with a good pace until I got to really my steady state with the race. And I was able to maintain that pace throughout the entire 26.2 miles. Other races, I think back to my first, where I thought I did not know how to pace myself.
Right.
I quickly exhausted myself and just did not have the time that I did in this race. I was very happy that I just maintained that pace, and even my last miles were some of my fastest miles for that entire race.
Wow.
That to me was just major satisfaction. I felt like, okay, it's not just the physical aspect of running a marathon that you have to learn to do it effectively. There's the mental grit.
There's your
also
mental
the
component.
strategic side of it too, and I felt like that kind of all came together, and I just felt so good about that race.
Well, congratulations. So many people will never have the chance or don't take the opportunity to run a marathon. So to even be there at all is amazing. To do it over a 20-year career is great. I also appreciate your attempt at a balanced approach too, because I think that's really important too. We've got to keep the heart strong. We got to keep the cardiovascular going, because that also helps with our cognitive health, our brain health. Also, we know that resistance training is important as well. That helps with balance and so many other things. So great approach to everything that's going on. And you're only 5 years away from the Huntsman World Series Games.
I know.
I want to put a plug in there. 5 years away. So we'll be looking for you to run our 5K or a 10K there down the line. But we want to wish you the very best in everything that you have going on. And congratulations on a great career and also the running and everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Kyle.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Just a couple of things to wrap us up here really quickly. I want to invite you to visit our website, seniorgames.net. There we have all of our official results from the 2025 games, as well as news and upcoming events related to the 2026 games. If you want to plan ahead, team registration for the 2026 Huntsman World Senior Games will open on January 1st, and individual registration opens on March 1st. The games will run from October 5th through the 17th for 2026. So we want to invite you again to put that on your calendar. Tim McMahon is a lifelong multi-sport competitor who has excelled in masters track and most recently made his debut in masters swimming at the Huntsman World Senior Games. He'll be our guest next week. Now he is in remission from stage 3 lymphoma and recovering from a knee replacement. He's working to return to world-class form, and you're not going to want to miss that show. Remember to tune in live next and every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time on AM 1450 or FM 93.1 101.1 for the Huntsman World Senior Games Active Life. We take this live show and turn it into a podcast, and you can subscribe anywhere that you find your favorite podcasts. If you're watching or listening by podcast, take a moment and give us a rating, write a quick review. That can really help us spread the word. You can also find this as well as previous shows right on our website. Once again, that is seniorgames.net. So check that out. Today's inspirational thought comes from the great Princess Diana, who once said, "Only do what your heart tells you," which I think is good advice. Until next Thursday, stay active.